The year is 509 BC. The place is the Tiber River in Rome, at the foot of the wooden bridge called the Pons Sublicius. The Roman Republic is barely a year old. The last king, the tyrant Tarquin the Proud, has been overthrown. But Tarquin has not accepted his exile. He has gone to the Etruscans, the powerful civilization to the north, and begged for help. The Etruscan king, Lars Porsena, has raised a massive army, perhaps 50,000 men, and marched on Rome. The Roman army has gone out to meet him, but the Etruscans have crushed them. The Roman soldiers are fleeing back toward the city. The gates are open. The bridges are crowded with panicked civilians. The Etruscan cavalry is already at the riverbank. In a few minutes, they will cross the bridge, enter the city, and slaughter everyone. Rome will be extinguished before it has even begun. But on the far side of the bridge, one man stands alone. He is not a general, he is not a senator. He is a low-ranking officer, a captain of the gate. His name is Publius Horatius Cocles. He has a scarred face, a battered shield, and a will made of iron. He looks at the fleeing Romans, he looks at the advancing Etruscans. He makes a decision that will echo through 3,000 years of history. He will hold the bridge. Alone, his comrades try to stop him. He pushes them back. He shouts to the men behind him, "Break the bridge! Break it with iron! Break it with fire! Break it with whatever you have! I will hold this end until the last plank falls." Then he steps forward, plants his feet, raises his shield, and faces the Etruscan army. One man against an army, a warrior who refused to run. This is the story of Horatius Cocles, the man who saved Rome, the legend that inspired a republic, and the proof that sometimes one warrior is enough. To understand Horatius, you must first understand the crisis that brought him to the bridge. The Roman Republic was born in revolution. In 509 BC, a group of Roman nobles led by Lucius Junius Brutus overthrew King Tarquin the Proud. Tarquin was a tyrant, cruel, corrupt, and despised. The Romans swore never to be ruled by a king again. They created a new government. 2 consuls, elected annually, who shared power and commanded the army. It was a fragile experiment. The old king's supporters still lived in Rome. The neighboring tribes saw the chaos as an opportunity, and Tarquin himself was in exile, plotting his return. He found an ally in Lars Porsena, the king of the Etruscan city of Clusium. The Etruscans were the most powerful people in Italy at the time. They had gold, iron, and a professional army. Porsena agreed to help Tarquin reclaim his throne. He marched on Rome with a force so large that the Romans could not hope to defeat it in open battle. The Roman army marched out to meet him. They were routed. The survivors fled back to Rome, spreading panic. The city was defended only by the Servian wall and the Tiber River. The Pons Sublicius, the only bridge across the Tiber at that time, was the key. If the Etruscans crossed it, they would be inside the walls before the Romans could organize a defense. The Senate ordered the bridge destroyed, but demolition takes time. The Etruscans were already at the river bank. Someone had to hold the bridge until the work was done. Someone had to be willing to die. Horatius Cocles volunteered. His name is unusual. Cocles means one-eyed in Latin. He may have lost an eye in an earlier battle, or the name may have been given to him later to mark his singular cyclopean courage. He was a captain in the Roman army, a man of the plebeian class, not a noble, but a commoner. He had no political ambitions. He was not trying to become consul or senator. He simply loved Rome. As the Roman soldiers fled past him, he stood his ground. He called out to the 2 officers who were with him, Spurius Lartius and Titus Herminius, "Our gods and our city are in your hands. Go, break the bridge, I will fight alone." Lartius and Herminius hesitated. They did not want to abandon their comrade, but Horatius insisted. They retreated, joining the work crews who were chopping at the wooden beams of the bridge. Horatius stood alone on the far end, his shield raised, his sword drawn. The Etruscan army advanced. They saw a single Roman standing on the bridge, blocking their path. They laughed. They sent a few soldiers forward to kill him quickly. Horatius cut them down. They sent more. He killed them too. He fought like a man possessed, slamming his shield into their faces, stabbing with his sword, pushing their bodies off the bridge into the Tiber. The Etruscans could not get past him. The bridge was narrow. Only 2 men could fight side by side at most. Horatius held the bottleneck. He killed so many that the Etruscans began to hesitate. They had never seen anything like this. 1 man holding back an army. The Roman work crews were hacking at the bridge. The planks groaned. The beams cracked. Then Horatius heard a shout, "The bridge is breaking! Come back!" He looked over his shoulder. The bridge behind him was collapsing. Planks were falling into the river. In a few seconds, there would be no way back. Horatius made a prayer. He raised his eyes to the Tiber, the river god, and said, "Father Tiber, receive these arms and this warrior into your sacred stream. I have done my duty." Then, as the bridge crumbled behind him, he leaped in full armor, shield and sword, into the Tiber. The Etruscan army watched in stunned silence. The river closed over him. Arrows and spears flew after him, but he was already underwater. He swam through the enemy missiles. He reached the Roman bank, pulled himself out, and collapsed. His comrades carried him to the city. He was alive. The Etruscans, blocked by the ruined bridge, could not cross. They stood on the far bank, frustrated and amazed. Rome was saved. The Roman people carried Horatius on their shoulders. They gave him as much land as he could plow in a single day. They erected a statue of him in the Comitium, the political heart of Rome, with an inscription that read, "To Horatius Cocles, who alone held the bridge against the Etruscans." Lars Porsena eventually made peace with the Romans, impressed by their courage. He never attacked the city again, and Horatius Cocles became the first hero of the Roman Republic. The story of Horatius Cocles is one of the most famous in Roman history. The Romans told it to their children. The poet Livy wrote it down in his massive history, Ab Urbe Condita, from the founding of the city. The poet Macaulay, nearly 2,000 years later, turned it into one of the most stirring poems in the English language, The Lays of Ancient Rome. That poem includes the lines that every schoolchild once memorized. "Then out spake brave Horatius, the captain of the gate, to every man upon this earth, death cometh soon or late." And how can man die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers and the temples of his gods? The story was carved into monuments, painted on walls, whispered by soldiers before battle. It became a symbol of Roman virtue, courage, self-sacrifice, loyalty to the state, and the willingness to die for something greater than oneself. The Romans called this virtue virtus, manliness, courage, excellence. Horatius had it in abundance, but the story of Horatius is also a story about the power of myth. Did it really happen? We do not know. The early history of Rome is a mixture of fact and legend. The Etruscan invasion is real. Lars Porsena was a real king. We have archaeological evidence of his existence. The bridge was real. But Horatius Cocles, he may have been a real person, a captain who performed a heroic act that was embellished over time. Or he may have been a complete invention, a symbol created by later Romans to teach a moral lesson. The truth is less important than the meaning. The Romans believed in Horatius. They needed to believe in him, because if one man could hold a bridge against an army, then Rome could survive anything. And it did. For 1,000 years, the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire that followed it dominated the Mediterranean world. Horatius was there at the beginning, standing on the bridge, refusing to move. There is another layer to the story that is often forgotten. Horatius was not a superhuman. He was not a demigod like Hercules. He was a man. He bled, he tired, he was afraid. He must have been afraid. But he did not let fear control him. He stood because he knew that if he ran, everyone would run. He stood because he had made a promise to himself, to his comrades, to his city. He stood because he believed that his life was worth less than the freedom of Rome. That is the difference between a hero and a legend. A legend is someone we admire from a distance. A hero is someone we could be. Horatius Cocles is a hero because he was ordinary. He was not the strongest or the fastest or the most skilled. He was simply the one who did not leave. That is a choice, and it is a choice that every one of us could make. Now let us talk about the aftermath. After the bridge fell and Horatius swam to safety, the Romans celebrated. But the war was not over. Lars Porsena still had his army. He still wanted to restore Tarquin. The Romans expected a siege, but Porsena, impressed by the courage of Horatius and the determination of the Romans, offered terms. He did not want to destroy Rome. He wanted a Roman king who would be friendly to the Etruscans. The Romans refused. They would not accept a king, not even a friendly one. Porsena then did something unexpected. He made peace. He withdrew his army. He even sent back the Roman hostages he had taken. Why? The Roman historians say that he was so impressed by Roman courage that he decided to become their ally instead of their enemy. The more cynical explanation is that Porsena realized that conquering Rome would be costly and that a friendly republic on his border was better than a smoldering ruin. Whatever the reason, the threat ended. Tarquin the Proud died in exile, still dreaming of his throne. The Roman Republic survived, and Horatius Cocles lived out his days as a hero. He was given a pension, land, and a statue. He was honored at public feasts. He was invited to speak at the Senate. He probably hated every minute of it. He was a soldier, not a politician. He wanted to fight, not to give speeches. But he accepted the honors because the city asked him to. That is what heroes do. They do not seek glory. They accept it when it comes, because the glory belongs not to them, but to the city they saved. So what can we learn from Horatius Cocles? First, that courage is contagious. Horatius stood alone, but he did not act alone. His courage inspired his comrades to break the bridge. His courage inspired the Roman people to defend their city. His courage has inspired generations of soldiers, leaders, and ordinary people to stand their ground when everything tells them to run. One brave person can change the course of history, not by winning the battle alone, no one can do that, but by showing others that victory is possible. Second, that sacrifice matters. Horatius was willing to die for Rome. He did not know that he would survive. He jumped into the Tiber expecting to drown. That willingness to give everything, that is what separates the hero from the ordinary. We remember Horatius because he was ready to pay the ultimate price. We remember him because he did not count the cost. Third, that defending a principle is sometimes more important than winning a war. Horatius did not destroy the Etruscan army. He did not even hurt them much. He killed a few soldiers, but the army remained intact. What he did was buy time. He gave the Romans a chance to destroy the bridge, to regroup, to survive. Sometimes the goal is not victory. The goal is to hold the line long enough for others to do what needs to be done. Fourth, that legends are the glue of civilization. The story of Horatius Cocles is not just a story, it is a founding myth. It tells Romans who they are, a people who do not retreat, who do not surrender, who will stand alone if they must. Every nation has such stories: the Alamo, Thermopylae, Stalingrad, the Battle of Britain. These stories are not always historically accurate, but they are true in a deeper sense. They tell us what we value. They tell us what we are willing to die for. They make us who we are. Fifth, that heroism is a choice. Horatius was not born a hero. He became one in a single moment when he decided to stand instead of run. Every one of us will face our own bridges. There will not be wooden bridges over the Tiber, and our enemies will not be Etruscans. But there will be moments when we have to choose: stand or run, fight or flee, sacrifice or save ourselves. Horatius teaches us that the choice matters, and that one person making the right choice can change everything. Today, the Pons Sublicius is long gone. The Tiber still flows through Rome, past the ruins of the Forum, past the Palatine Hill, past the Circus Maximus. No bridge marks the spot where Horatius stood, but there is a plaque somewhere near the riverbank, placed by the city of Rome in the 19th century. It reads, "Here stood Horatius Cocles, who alone held the bridge against the Etruscans." The plaque is small and easy to miss, but the legend is not small. It is as large as Rome itself. And as long as Rome is remembered, as long as courage is honored, as long as sacrifice is revered, as long as one person standing alone can inspire millions, the name of Horatius Cocles will live. One warrior against an army, a man who refused to move, the defender of the bridge, the first hero of the Republic, the man who taught the world that one brave heart can stop 1,000 swords. That is the story of Horatius Cocles, and that is why 3,000 years later we still tell it. We tell it because we need to believe that one person can make a difference. We tell it because we hope that when our own bridge comes, when our own enemy appears on the horizon, we will have the courage to stand, to hold, to leap, and to survive. Horatius Cocles, the name means the one-eyed man, but we remember him as the one who saw clearly what needed to be done. And he did it, alone, unflinching, unforgettable. The bridge is gone. The Etruscans are dust. Rome itself has fallen and risen and fallen again. But Horatius stands. In the imagination of every person who has ever faced impossible odds, he stands, and he whispers, "Do not run. Hold the line. You are not alone. You never were." That is the legacy of the man who defended Rome's bridge. One warrior against an army, and the warrior won. Not by killing the army, no, one can do that, but by refusing to let them pass. Sometimes that is all that history asks of us: to stand, to hold, to be for one brief moment the bridge between defeat and victory. Horatius Cocles did that, and so can we. That is his story. That is his gift. That is his eternal, unbreakable, glorious challenge. One warrior, one bridge, one choice, eternity.